Okay, let's generate our motivation. And think that the claps of thunder that we just heard are reminding us to wake up, to remember compassion and wisdom, and all the rain that is falling right now, being like millions of manjushris or chandrasis or taras, falling and cooling the heat of the afflictions on the earth, bringing some peace and serenity to sentient beings' minds. Just imagine all that rain washing away the afflictions and the pain and confusion of the afflictions. And just with a simple visualization like that, our own mind can calm down, and we can also think that other people's minds have calmed down. And by not exaggerating the circumstances we encounter or the qualities or negativities of the other people, instead thinking of ourselves as peaceful, thinking of them as peaceful, it really helps the mind to settle. And with that settled mind, then we can think of others' kindness to us, of their misery in samsara, and we can generate the wish to become awakened Buddhas so that we can contribute to overcoming afflictions, specifically overcoming our own afflictions, and then being able to influence others in a positive way so that they can overcome their afflictions. But influencing them in a positive way without having an agenda, without having expectations for what they should be or do. So when I think about being of benefit, but without having an agenda or expectations of others, then the image of radiating light comes much easier. Yeah, because either Buddha radiating light to us or us radiating light to others, when we just do it because we help because that's what you do, then it's very easy. When there's expectations and agendas, then nothing radiates. It claws. Yeah. And that's where we often get messed up. Yeah. So when we ended last week's session, there was the assignment to take all the remaining questions that people had asked about ethical conduct, remember? And send them out to all of you and have some of you answer those questions. Okay? So the replies, some of them are quite lengthy. So, oh, the people online answered the questions. Oh, you never saw them? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So, so in that case, what I'll do is I'll try and abbreviate the answers, instead of reading many, many pages, but to give the points. But it's good. People really were thinking a lot about it. Yeah. So the first question basically is, why is killing a large animal worse or heavier than killing smaller animals? Okay. And somebody said, because it's less skillful, you have more severe consequences and a deeper impact as we witness their pain, as well as the effect of their loss. So it's not to say that a cow is more valuable than a spider, but to measure the skillfulness or unskillfulness of the nature of the activity. I think in the teachings it also says, because it takes more energy to kill a large animal than a small animal. So you have to really exert yourself the way you do it. The third part, the third factor in the action of the action itself, performing the action, you have to really exert some energy to, let's say, kill a cow to eat. That's much more than stepping on a stink bug. Okay, so that adds to the heaviness of it. Then the next question is, wouldn't going vegan be more ethical over being vegetarian? When dairy cows and egg-laying hens are exhausted and spent in their production, the farmers send them to slaughterhouses for meat. So this person was saying that the answer was that the Buddha said meat should not be eaten when we have seen somebody kill it for us, when we've heard that they've killed it for us, when we've suspected that they've killed it for us. And clearly, if we have killed the animal ourselves, or if we've asked somebody else to kill it. Okay, so this person is saying, with dairy and eggs, we don't wish for these beings to be harmed, as we certainly aren't asking for it to happen that after they produce so much milk and so many eggs, they're shipped off to be slaughtered. Okay, that's not something that the people who eat dairy and drink milk, or have eggs, that's not something they're wishing on the animals. That's not something they have any control over. And then they say, I think choosing to be vegan with the intention to reduce harm to animals is virtuous and an admirable thing to do. But even to get our vegetables, sentient beings are harmed. Okay, and so you may say, well, we aren't harmed, but then it's the similar thing. There's farmers growing it, and they're plowing the fields and killing the different bugs and things like that. So that's similar to the chicken farmers and the dairy farmers, killing the animals afterwards. So that they say, so to answer simply, I don't think being vegetarian over being vegan is less ethical. But I do think if you choose to have a vegan diet with the specific intention to reduce harm to sentient beings, then that's very virtuous and a wholesome thing to do. And it is very true that if we look around, all of our food is going to involve some harm, and even things that we aren't eating. In other words, if you drive a car, you're killing a lot of animals. In the windshield, you're running over them. So are you accumulating negative karma for driving a car? Do you stop driving a car to go do the errands that you do because sentient beings are getting killed? Or do you do something that tries to lessen the death involved, like not go out when you don't need to, and to say the mantra that we usually say that and blow on our feet, to say that and blow on the tires of the car, to help them have a good rebirth. So why would it be okay to choose to be a prostitute, but not okay to choose to be a porn actor? Was it in the book that it said people shouldn't be porn actors? I don't think that was written there. Okay. So the person said, that the book said, if a person voluntarily chooses to earn their livelihood through sexual services, and these services do not damage oneself or others in the short or long term, the situation would not be considered sexual misconduct. But if it does harm people or harm oneself, either through spreading STDs or using people or being violent during sexual acts, clearly that's something that is, very harmful. Okay. And then in talking about being a porn actor, which doesn't come up in the book, the person is saying material that reduces human beings to sexual objects harms both the viewer and the viewed. It stimulates undue lust that easily leads to inappropriate behavior. Okay, so attachment exaggerates objects. Porn exaggerates sexual relationships and expectations. And being filmed, the harm can continue long after the act is over. Okay, so a prostitute may consent for a night, but once porn is released to the world, it can be viewed over and over and over with internet access. And then if you consider child's porn, when that child is growing up and then still people are watching porn of them being, sexual acts being done on them, that's really harmful for the child, the adult that the child has grown into, because it's like, it's on internet and everybody can see it, and it's really kind of yucky for that person. Yeah, because as a child, you can't say no. You're under the power of adults. And so there it is. Okay, so I understand that pornography is objectifying others and is considered wrong, but where does masturbation sit in terms of sexual ethics? So this person said, I don't think that masturbation itself is by nature unethical or wrong. However, depending on different factors, it could fall under unwise and unkind sexual behavior, as well as to lead to creating destructive karma. For example, if a person has taken the celibacy precept, whether it be lifelong or for any other given length of time, the commitment is to abandon not only sexual intercourse, but to abandon all forms of sexual expression as well. Okay. And then they said, I think it's also important to be aware of the imprints very strong attachment to masturbation could leave on the mind. Like a junkie, it could become the drug of choice, increase attachment to distracting activities and self-centeredness, increase craving, thinking it's the epitome of happiness, as opposed to being extremely temporal, and perhaps even begin to doubt the value of the spiritual practice, as well as waste time and so on. Okay? Now, a person said they don't think that masturbation by itself is unethical or wrong. What about for monastics? You think that holds for monastics? Have you studied your precepts? Yeah, there's precepts against masturbation for both bhikshus and bhikshunis. Yeah, people should be very clear about that. Yeah, for the bhikshus, it's quite heavy. It's a remainder, a Sanghavasesa, which is the second one. For bhikshunis, it's a payasatika, a lapse. Okay, but for monastics, certainly, that is something that should definitely be abandoned. And if it happens, it needs to be confessed and amends made. For the monks, the amends process is really a big deal, because you have to stay apart from the Sangha for a period of time. First, for the monks, they have a period of time that they have to stay apart from the Sangha according to how many days they concealed the infraction. Then they have a period of penance where every day, that's usually I think it's for a week for the monks, where every day they have to go and confess to 4 monks about what they did. Then they have a period of rehabilitation where they need 20 monks to come, and you have to confess and to get rehabilitated. For the nuns, it's just 2 weeks of the penance period, but you need 20 monks and 20 nuns to be rehabilitated. That's for Sanghavasesas. This is not a Sanghavasesa for the nuns, okay? But that doesn't mean, it's a lesser precept, so it's okay to do. Okay, because especially if you get in the habit of it, then it goes on and on and on, and you may wind up having sex with another person, just because you're in that habit. Okay, and then somebody said, for me, it seems cruel to say to someone we care that they should continue living if they are experiencing unbearable pain. I don't think they are selfish if they want to die, or that they should continue living so they don't cause others pain, or so they don't have a bad rebirth. It doesn't seem compassionate. Well, if somebody's going to have a bad rebirth, don't you think warning them about that would be something compassionate? Okay, but I think there's a misunderstanding. Nobody is saying to a person who is in extreme pain and wants to assisted suicide. Nobody is saying that we go to them and we say, you should continue living even though you don't want to. I think that this person misunderstood. Nobody is saying, we don't care that you're in pain. You've got to continue living. That's not what you go and say. That's not very compassionate. But what you can say is, you may be in extreme pain, but if you have a spiritual practice, continuing to live longer could help you deepen your spiritual practice, and that could help you at the actual time of death to die more peacefully. That's what you say to the person. You don't do some big guilt trip about, you're so selfish and other people are going to be really mad at you if you kill yourself. I mean, okay. So I think there was some misunderstanding about this. Yeah, because the thing wasn't you go and tell somebody they can't kill themselves. The thing that I said was your life is still valuable even if you're in extreme pain. And that's the point. If you have a spiritual practice, your life is still valuable. Okay, so we want to see that your life is valuable. For you, it's valuable because if you can deepen your spiritual practice, then you will die more peacefully, and that will be much better for your next rebirth. Okay? But, of course, it's somebody's own choice whether they want to kill themselves or not. But they should not pressure their family or friends to assist in the suicide if the family and friends don't want to do that. Okay. Also, there's the thing of it being very heavy karma to kill one's father or to kill one's mother. Yeah. So if you're doing assisted suicide, don't ask your kids to help. Okay, because that is extremely negative karma for them. Okay. So nobody's trying to control anybody, but we're trying to be compassionate and like I told you, the young man that I was helping in Singapore, he was ready to go to school in America. He could get a great job going back to Singapore, really, the top of his life, got cancer, died at 31. And, and he was very ill for a long time, and he just said, "Oh, I'm a useless person." And I said, "No, you aren't. Your life still has a lot of meaning and value, and you continue practicing, and, don't give up on yourself. Don't use worldly standards to think, well, I can't do what everybody else is doing, so my life is useful. Because what makes our life useful is how we work with our mind, not whether we can produce more widgets or win more court cases or whatever it is. Okay. Okay. So the person who answered, they said, "My heart goes out to you and the people you know who are in unbearable pain. You're wise to be cautious about advising someone in such a situation, which fits what we've been taught. Before saying anything, we should listen closely to the person who's struggling, understand their beliefs, and try to discern how receptive they are to other perspectives. Any words of advice need to fit where they're coming from, where the other person is coming from. The greatest benefit may be to offer no advice at all. So we've been taught to examine our mind and motivations. Are we attached to a particular outcome in personal distress because we can't endure their suffering and so on? So I think that's very, very good advice. Yeah. Really check your mind, listen to where the other person's at and see what is suitable for them. Okay, and then they go on to say, the Buddha had the omniscience to see that in most cases, taking life before natural death occurs will result in future suffering. Speaking for myself as an ordinary being, this can be hard to comprehend because karma and all the other causes and conditions at play are very complex and obscure to us. So as you've applied the teachings to your own experience, have you seen evidence that the more visible aspects of karma do in fact hold true? If so, then it might mean that the more hidden aspects could also be true. Yeah. then it may also be true that what seems to lessen suffering short term can bring greater suffering long term. And that was always the question Lama gave when we asked him about euthanizing pets. Yeah, if you know exactly where that pet's going to be reborn and they're going to be in a happier place, then fine, you can euthanize them. But if you don't know, you may be sending them to a more suffering life quicker. Okay, and then they say, thank you for your honest questions about such a sensitive issue. You inspired me to reflect more deeply, and I wish you well as you study further. That was a very nice answer to that person. Okay. So you can see with all these things that it's things we need to think about and learn the teachings and decide for ourselves in terms of that specific situation. Okay? And so people always ask these questions. And as usual, we want one right answer that applies to all circumstances so that we don't need to think about what to do or be responsible for what we do. We can say, well, so-and-so told me it was okay. Okay? And that's not the way things really work. Okay? So we need to study, then apply what we study to the situation and come to our own conclusions and, be flexible enough to know that we and other people will come to different conclusions, and that in different situations, we ourselves may come to different conclusions about how to act. Any more questions or comments about these current issues? Yeah.
I was just wondering with the masturbation is unethical because it's one of our precepts, but I was wondering if it was considered a naturally negative act.
I would think probably, because it's really inciting a lot of lust and attachment and so on. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, so we'll go on to chapter 11, which is called The Results of Karma. So through our intentions and our actions, we create our experiences. Each of us experiences the result of intentional actions we have done. The Buddha explains, whatever karma an ignorant person has done, born of attachment, anger, and confusion, whether what was fashioned by him be little or much, it is to be experienced right here. There exists no other site for it. So right here means in ourself. We create the cause, so we have to experience the result, okay? We can't create the cause and then pass the result on to somebody else to experience, okay? It doesn't work that way. So we cannot transfer our karma to others so they experience the result, nor do we experience the result of others' actions. The results of our actions are concordant with their causes. If we create the cause for happiness, we experience happiness. If we create the causes for pain, that is what we will experience. And then the Buddha says, having done an intentional action by way of the body, speech, or mind, whose result is to be felt as pleasant, one feels pleasure. Having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, or mind, whose result is to be felt as painful, one feels pain. Having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, or mind, whose result is to be felt as neutral, one feels neutral. So the emphasis here is that the result is concordant with the cause. Okay, suffering always comes from non-virtue. Happiness always comes from virtue. Okay, and those things never get twisted around, and there's nobody we can bargain with to change that. Yeah, it's like, gravity, things fall towards the ground, and who are you going to complain about that to if you don't like that? Okay. Experiencing the long-term results of our actions does not contradict the fact that our actions influence others here and now. Okay, so when we think of the results of our actions, most of the time we think of immediate results. What's going to happen in the next 10 minutes if I do X, Y, and Z. It may, our analysis may extend longer, what will happen next year, or the year after. Yeah. Sometimes we'll think about a decade or 2 decades later, but not always so often, and the most we'll think about the future is when we think about old age and saving money for old age. Okay? So that it engenders a lot of concern for us. But we seldom think about what kind of person am I going to be based on the actions that I'm doing now. Am I going, we're so concerned about having enough money when we're old. But what kind of person are we going to be when we're old? If we don't train our mind, we're going to be, complaining and bitter, and, you might have a ton of money, but it's not going to be worth very much if you haven't tamed your mind. Yeah, but we don't tend to think so long, in the future about the results of our actions, and we tend to, what is going to give me the most pleasure now? Yeah. Don't you think? Yeah. I mean, that's where the mind goes. And yeah, how many of us really sit down and think? I was doing an interview a couple of weeks ago, and it was for people who were in the tech industry. And I just started talking about this, just not just being so entranced with all the fantastic things you can make in IT, but, what about what kind of human being you want to be? Yeah, because it was a talk for millennials, and when you're young, it's like, what can I achieve, and how much money, and how much fame, and how much status, and who will fall in love with me because I have all this stuff, and how can I, enhance my profile on Facebook and Instagram and everything else, and and then I come along and I say, well, what kind of human being do you want to be? Yeah, because I think that's going to be much more important in the end than your material wealth and your social status and all that kind of stuff. Because the thing is, you can work really hard for material things, but you won't necessarily get it. You can work very hard for social status, you won't necessarily get that. But if you work very hard on becoming a kind person, you will become definitely kinder. And if you work hard on being more generous, or more flexible, or whatever those internal qualities are that you admire, you will become more of those qualities. Yeah? And what is really more important in our life? Yeah. Are we already at a young age thinking of what people are going to write about us in our obituary? And so we're planning to achieve all these things in the hopes that we'll have a grand obituary? Yeah. So I'm 20 now, but if look, I can do all these things and have a fantastic obituary. Yeah. And, maybe they'll even write me up in the New York Times, because they have an obituary column and they always put famous people in there. Yeah. So maybe, I will be somehow famous in some way and they'll write an obituary for me in the New York Times. And I'll be so famous that they'll have the obituary of everything I've done in my life written before I die, so that when I die, they can just pull it out of their files and publish it. I mean, do you think they do all this research about somebody's life after they die? No, they have your obituary already written. Yeah, for every single famous person, the newspapers have your obituary. They may update it every year, and then they just pull it out of the files when you die and publish it. Yeah. And meanwhile, you're like in the bardo trying to figure out, where your next life is, and your obituary doesn't do you any good there. Yeah, you're not sitting on a cloud looking down on earth and, I want to be born as, you're rich and famous. I want to be born as your kid. And here's my obituary, read it. And if you like it, then have sex and I'll get reborn as your kid. No, it's not like that. Okay? Experiencing the long-term results of our actions does not contradict the fact that our actions influence others here and now, and our actions influence us here and now. Okay, so there's long-term results, and there's intermediate results, and there's short-term results. Okay. Giving another person food, we temporarily cure his hunger as well as create the cause to have resources in our future lives. Dedicating virtuous actions for a dear one who is deceased may affect that person's rebirth in a positive way. Similarly, the Buddha's awakening was a result of his own efforts, but we also share the good fruits of his accumulation of merit over the 3 countless great eons. In all these examples, one person's karma has not been transferred to another person. It has not been transferred so that another person experiences the result. Rather, as sentient beings, we are interdependent, and the actions of one person may activate the ripening of another person's karma. So that's what's going on when we do prayers for people who have died, and then dedicating the merit to them. It's not that they will experience the result of our merit, because you can't transfer merit. There's no wire, transfer you can do with your merit. Everybody experiences the result of their own merit, but we can influence people by sending, by sending them off with love, by mentally giving them instructions about letting go and going on with their kind and compassionate life to the next rebirth and not clinging on to anything and stuff like that, and then creating merit and dedicating it for their good rebirth. Okay, but as I always say, the best way to help your friends and relatives have a good rebirth is when they're alive now, and you can influence them to create their own virtue and influence them to abandon non-virtue themselves. That's the best way to do it. Yeah. I often think that a lot of the funeral things in most religions are done for the living, not for the dead. Yeah. Because the living need to make sense and grieve and so on. But often it's languaged in that we're benefiting the person who died. But I think usually it's the person who's doing the virtuous action who benefits the most. Okay. If you have a teacher who is very skilled in POA, and you have the karma and the connection with that person, then maybe they can, do something, but not so much otherwise. Yeah. But it does help the living people to create merit. So that's good. That's good for the living people. They create merit, and that will help them in their good life, their future life. So the karmic result corresponds to the ethical nature of the action, which is primarily determined by the intention that motivated it. Actions done with a good intention bring agreeable results for the person who does them, and actions done with destructive motivations brings miserable results in the long term. So someone may do something negative now and feel happy about it. Oh, I just robbed the bank. Yahoo! Let's go get chocolate fudge sundaes. But they may feel happy about it now, but the result, the karmic result, is going to be unhappiness. Okay. Okay. Actions may have immediate results that do not correspond with the ethical quality of the intention. Okay, like the example I just gave. Okay, these immediate results are not the karmic results. For example, with the intention to help, Jeff gives some money to a friend. The next day, someone steals the money, buys alcohol, and then injures someone in a car accident. Okay, Jeff's action of being generous was still a virtuous one, even though the immediate result had unintended suffering for another person. Okay, but Jeff had none of that in his mind when he gave the money. Okay, so now 3 results of karma. Our actions bring several results. Some are immediate results, others are karmic results that ripen later. When we are angry and speak harshly to someone, we immediately feel uneasy and experience an unpleasant reaction from the other person. In addition, the mental action of malice and the verbal action of harsh speech leave karmic seeds on our mind stream. After a few years, a few lifetimes, or even eons, those seeds will ripen in our experiencing unpleasant events. Okay? So it's true, if we really stop and look at our experience, we may get angry and tell somebody off. And some people tell me they feel so good after they've done that. I stuck up for myself and I blasted this person and I let them know that they can't pick on me anymore and that, I'm going to punch them in the face if they continue acting in that way. It felt so good. I got my anger out and I cleared the air, and now that person knows exactly where I'm at. They're going to behave better. Okay? So people say that after they get angry and, attack somebody. But I wonder, in their own hearts, do they really feel good? Because it's one thing to say, oh, I got rid of my anger and I fixed the situation. In the moment, when you're thinking that that's what, in fact, you did. And I wonder about that. And then when you're home alone, just with the energy of your anger, thinking about the other person and how they experienced what you said, do you still feel happy at that time? Okay? And I think many people don't feel so happy at that time, but it's difficult to admit that they don't feel happy. Okay? Now here something comes in, which I often ask at talks. Who do you say the worst, horrible, most insulting, most painful, derogatory things to? Someone you love or a stranger? Who do you say the worst things to?
The ones you love the most.
The ones you love the most. We would never say to a stranger what we say to the people we love. Okay? So there you are. You say, okay, I let them have it. But you've just broken trust. And trust takes a long time to build up and a short time to destroy. Do you feel good about breaking that trust? Yeah. The other person may have submitted to what you were demanding, but do they like you because of it? Are they going to be warm and friendly afterwards? Are they going to trust you or think well of you afterwards? Yeah. So I think often, when people really sit and think about what I said to the people I care the most about, then they'll see actually they don't feel so good about what they did. And definitely they'll experience immediate results from that because the other person will, tune them out or avoid them or, speak badly about them to other people or who knows what. But it's an interesting thing. Why do you think we speak more horribly to the people we care about than we do to strangers? Why is that? Attachment. Yeah. Our lives are more intertwined. Yeah. They are more meaningful in my life. They help me more. They make me happy more. I have more expectations of them. Because we're so close, I have more expectations. And I feel free to put my unasked for expectations on them. On a stranger, I don't have that freedom to so much put my unasked for expectations on them, except maybe an expectation that they're polite to me or, something like that. But the expectations we put on the people that we're close to, aren't just, expectations about being polite. They're, how they will think about me, how they will treat me, what the relationship is going to be for the rest of our lives, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So, just something to think about. Sometimes I think that one reason why we're so awful to the people we care the most about is because those people are quite meaningful in our lives, and we feel so close to them as if, they're ours. Put it simply, they're ours. They're mine, my husband, wife, parent, child, friend, they're mine. So because they're mine, I should be able to have certain expectations and have certain control over them. Yeah, because they're my possession. So, this is my clock. I have control over the clock. Yeah. So if somebody is my whatever relation, then I should have some control over them. And so I think that's one part in it. Another part is we feel so close that we think we don't need to use common etiquette, common politeness with those people. In other words, we're part of the same family. You're mine, I'm yours. I can treat you any way I want because we're so close. I don't need to say please. I don't need to say thank you. I don't need to apologize when I do things, because we're so close. So I can treat you in a horrible way, maybe just as I treat myself in a horrible way, but I don't need to apologize to you. Yeah? Do you think that plays in there somewhere? Mm-hmm.
But I'm a little bit confused because I think we can be very horrible to people of other cultures, such as racism and such, but we would never say to our closed ones.
Right.
Yeah.
But those people, that's not the kind of anger that we have at friends and relatives. Yeah. That's a different mental state, being stereotyping people, being racist or sexist or whatever, because that is not steered towards an individual. That is the wrong conception of our mind, imputing stuff on a whole group of people. Okay? So it's not individual, and it's not the kind of anger that where, they did something I don't like, so I get angry at them. That is much more, I think, hatred, which is something that is more under the surface and lasts longer. Yeah, because it's really based on so much stereotyping and prejudice. Yeah. But you're right, we can harm, strangers very often in ways that we wouldn't harm dear ones. But in terms of our anger over an incident that just happened, it's usually the people we're closest to. The scriptures speak of 3 results that come about due to actions done with all 4 branches. So we went through the 4 branches before: the basis, attitude, performance, and completion. Okay? So come about due to actions done with all 4 branches accomplished. Okay? So they are the ripening result, sometimes translated as the maturation result, the causally concordant result, and the environmental result. Okay. The causally concordant result has 2 types. So sometimes we hear there are 3 results, sometimes we hear 4, depending on whether the causally concordant one is counted as 1 or as 2. Okay, so the first one, to be a ripening or maturation result, 4 factors are required. And this kind of result is the one that throws the kind of rebirth. Principally, it's the one that throws the rebirth that we experience. Okay, in other words, what realm we're born into. It doesn't, the maturation result doesn't function so much in terms of the details and conditions of that rebirth, but more in terms of what kind of being, what body we have. Okay. So to be a ripening result, 4 factors are required. First, the cause is either virtuous or non-virtuous. So a neutral action is not strong enough to throw a rebirth. Yeah, neutral actions are not done with very strong intentions. and most of the time we're not even aware we've committed, we've done a neutral action. So the action has to be virtuous or non-virtuous to have the power to that rose of rebirth. Second, the result is connected with the continuum of sentient beings. Okay, so the result is something that is conjoined with sentient beings continuum. The third is the result comes after the cause, but that's the case for all results. And fourth, the result itself is neutral, neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. So the cause must be virtuous or non-virtuous, but the result is neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. Okay? So an example of a ripening result is the human psychophysical aggregates: form, feeling, discriminations, miscellaneous factors, and consciousnesses that we appropriated in our present life. Their cause was virtuous karma, because it's considered a fortunate rebirth. And those aggregates, be they form or mental aggregates, they're connected with the continuum of a sentient being. So our rebirth came after its karmic cause, and our body itself is neutral, neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. Okay, so taking a human rebirth or an animal rebirth or a God rebirth or a hungry ghost rebirth, they have those four qualities. So Aryadeva says, suffering is a ripening and thus is not virtuous. Similarly, birth too is not virtuous, being a ripening result of actions. Okay, so suffering is a maturation. I think when it's here, let's keep reading. Suffering arises due to non-virtuous causes, but itself is neutral. Okay, so when you're experiencing suffering, you're not creating bad karma. You're experiencing the result of bad karma, but that result itself is neutral. Similarly, the body of a new life is a result of virtuous or non-virtuous karma, but it itself is ethically neutral. So your body's not virtuous, it's not non-virtuous, okay? In general, a heavy destructive action brings rebirth as a hell being, a middle one brings rebirth as a hungry ghost, and a minor one brings rebirth as an animal. In some texts, hungry ghost and animal are reversed. Okay, so it depends what text you're reading. Okay, so this is just talking about the results of destructive actions. Clearly, if it's a virtuous karma that's ripening, the rebirth will be in a human realm or a celestial realm in the desire realm. To be born in the form of formless realms, the cause for that is the level of meditative stabilization or meditative absorption that you attain in this life. Okay, so it's a little bit different there. With the exception of the causally concordant behavioral result, all other results are neutral. Okay, so the causally concordant has two branches. One is in terms of our experience, okay, like you do something harmful and then in a future life you experience harm, okay? And the other is a causally concordant behavioral result, which means that we have a tendency to do a similar kind of action again in the future. Okay, so with the exception of that causally concordant behavioral result, which could be virtuous or non-virtuous, yeah, all the other results are neutral. And it's saying here, in general, a heavy destructive action brings rebirth as a hell being, and so on. Because that there is just, if you look at the kind of action, that's just looking at it in terms of what actions are naturally negative, and the ones that are heavier in terms of being naturally negative, those ones will produce a worse kind of rebirth. But it says in general, because there's so many other conditions that influence exactly how that karma will ripen. So that karma, if it's a destructive karma, for sure it's going to, unless it's purified, it's going to ripen in a lower rebirth. But there's so many different kinds of lower rebirths. There's so many different lengths of life of lower rebirths. There's a lot of things going on. So any kind of rebirth, it's not just one karma, it's a whole collection of so many different karmas, okay? And some of the karmas may be virtuous and some non-virtuous. Like, for example, if you're born as a human being, that's a neutral result, but it's the result of virtuous karma. But you were born in a place where there's war, and there's constant war, okay? That's an environmental result, of a destructive action. So the birth is a result of a virtuous action. Being born in a war zone and not being able to leave is a result of what we call a completing cause. It talks about the conditions around that rebirth. And that was being born in a war zone, so it's a result of something negative. Okay? So like that, one rebirth, there's so many karmas that ripen. With the exception of the causally concordant behavioral result, all other results are neutral. How we respond to suffering and happiness and to the different situations in which they occur creates the causes for more future results. As causes, these actions may be virtuous or non-virtuous or neutral. They leave karmic seeds on our mind stream, and these produce more births and the experiences that we encounter in these additional births. Okay, so when we talk about cyclic existence, this is exactly how it works. Okay? And that will come more in the next volume, when we get into the 12 links of dependent arising. Yeah. But the idea is that, in some previous lives, you created different karmas that ripen in producing one life. Yeah. And in that life, you may experience pleasant situations, unpleasant situations, easy, or difficult situations, or whatever. Okay, those kind of results are all neutral, but how you respond, how you act in those situations is going to create more karma, which, if the 4 branches are complete, will serve to propel you into another rebirth. Or if the branches aren't all complete, it may ripen in terms of a completing factor, that influences some other condition in that rebirth. Okay, so the idea is, until we eliminate the ignorance that underlies all of our samsaric actions, whether they're virtuous or non-virtuous, yeah, then we will continue to be reborn. And as soon as you take rebirth, you start creating more karma, often in response to the results that you're experienced because of the karma you created in the past. Okay, so here you can see why what's more important, how we get the thought training teachings, where Lama Zopa is saying, if you get hired for a good job, that's good. If you don't get hired for a good job, that's also good. If you get fired from your job, that's wonderful. Yeah. The reason, why you train your mind to think like that is because that saves you from creating more negative karma that will bring more future suffering. Okay? Because we'll have good, things happen to us and bad things happen to us. And we can get so locked up in the exact situation we're in. Yeah, fighting the situation or drowning in glory and attachment in the situation, whatever it is, okay. But we forget that at the same time, we are creating karma, and that karma is going to influence what happens to us in the future. Okay, so this is how we can cut things when we when we experience suffering, and instead of responding with blame and anger or self-pity, we think in one of the ways that the thought training teaches us, then, that karma, the non-virtuous karma that caused the present suffering, it's exhausted, and no more non-virtuous karma is created because of that. In fact, some virtuous karma is created because you practice the mind training teachings and had a more positive, realistic view. Okay? Also, another thing to talk about when we're talking about results is it's not this kind of tit for tat of, you screamed at me in this life, so next life I scream at you, and then you scream at me again, and then I scream at you. It's the person that we harm when we do a negative action is not necessarily going to be the person who harms us back isn't necessarily going to be the continuum of that person that we harmed. We just created the negative karma to receive some unpleasant result. Who it is who's involved in the situation, or maybe there's not even another person involved. Maybe it happens with an inanimate object. That is determined by or influenced by other factors. Okay? So don't get this thing of, it's not like the elementary school playground of Johnny hit me, so I hit him back. No, it's, Johnny hit me, and now Johnny has some negative karma, and somebody's going to hit him back or do something to him, but it doesn't have to be me. Okay? Unless I really am angry and I make a very strong prayer in future lives, I will exact my revenge. Okay, but who wants to make that kind of aspiration? Okay. The causally concordant result, that's the second one, is usually experienced when we are again born as a human, but it can also influence other conditions in our lives when we're not humans. So it is of two types. The first is the causally concordant experiential result, and that is our experiencing circumstances similar to what we caused others to experience. So we persecuted some people, then next, in a future life, we will be the people who are persecuted. Okay? So it doesn't mean you're persecuted in the exact same way. It doesn't mean it's the same groups of people who are persecuting each other. There's a lot of flexibility in there. But it will be something similar to what we cause somebody else to experience. So, what is it? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So it's kind of that thing, If you don't want someone to act horribly to you, take care how you act towards them, because it's a causally concordant experiential result that you experience. So, for example, killing results in experiencing injury, illness, or a short life. Generosity brings resources. So those are all the causally concordant experiential result, of either virtuous or non-virtuous karma. The causally concordant behavioral result is the tendency to behave in the same way in the future. So my parents made this video of me when I was 4 years old having a temper tantrum, because I couldn't get my skates on. So, there's a seed of having temper tantrums in my mind. I have confessed and regretted that one a lot. Not just because they have living proof of me doing it in terms of, like the old kind of motion picture stuff your parents used to do. But, it's a tendency to behave in the same way in the future. So we should look at what our habits are now. Our habits of how we think, how we speak to people, how we behave physically, because every time we're doing something, we're putting that imprint in our mind to do something similar to that again in the future. We're very much creatures of habit. Okay, so someone who lies in this life will have the tendency to lie and deceive others in future lives, whereas someone who trains in truthful speech will readily speak truthfully in future lives. Okay. Now, when we think of what is going on in this country, and you watch how people are behaving and how people are speaking, it's an incredible study in karma. And when you start thinking about the results, the ripening result they're going to experience, the causally concordant experiential result, the causally concordant behavior result, and then we'll go to the environmental result soon. Then, it's like, okay, somebody may have a lot of power this life, be doing all sorts of horrible things. And when you think about the kind of rebirth they have, it's really frightening. And if you've been practicing compassion at all, then you will feel some fear for the other person, some compassion, because of the future they're creating for themselves by their present behavior. And I find that makes it much easier to calm down and not be so angry at those people, because they really are objects of compassion. Each non-virtue also gives an environmental result affecting the ambience in which we live. So there's a chart coming up. The chart will help you see the results of the 10 non-virtues at a glance. The causally concordant behavioral result is not listed because it is the tendency to do that same action again. Okay? So, if you turn the page on page 272, on the top of 273, there's the chart with the action, the causally concordant experiential result, and the environmental result. So let's just read through these. I think it's a chart, but if we read through it, it'll go in our mind a little bit more. Okay, so killing. The ripening result isn't listed in these because these are all non-virtuous actions. So you're going to wind up with an unfortunate rebirth. But the causally concordant experiential result is short life and poor health. And so sometimes we meet people with very poor health and very short lives. And this is a result of having killed in past lives. Now, of course, you're not going to go and tell the parent of a child who's in the children's hospital when they say, "Why is my child sick?" You don't go and you say, "Well, they created the karma by doing non-virtue in a previous life." I mean, if it's somebody who knows nothing about karma, this is not the time that you start teaching them about it. If it's somebody who's Buddhist, then you can, and again, it will depend on the depth of that person's understanding, but you suggest, think about karma a little bit and, let that person think about it. Environmental result of killing. You're born in a place with strife and war. Food and drink aren't healthy. Medicine is not potent. Okay, lots of places on this earth like that. Stealing can causally concordant experiential result. Poverty. Our things are stolen or we don't have the power to use them. Okay, so something is legally yours, but you can't get to it. Or your stuff is always getting ripped off. Like that. And we meet people like this, don't we? And environmental, poor place with many dangers, droughts or floods, poor harvests, and natural disasters. Okay. So, maybe the results of the climate change that we're experiencing now and will experience in the future, unless we do something, they will be the environmental results of our non-virtue. Okay, unwise and unsexual conduct. The experiential result is disagreeable or unfaithful spouse and marital disharmony. I remember being at one of His Holiness's teachings in Dharamsala with some friends. Actually, they were friends from DFF. And His Holiness was giving a teaching on this. And when we were walking away after the teachings, one of the people said, "Oh, now I understand why I always wind up in relationships with people who cheat on me." And I admire that person's, ability to say, "Yeah, I'm admitting I must have done this kind of thing in a past life, and that's why I wind up in these kind of relationships now." Okay. Environmental is life in a dirty place with poor sanitation, a foul odor, and misery. Okay, so maybe that skunk was helping, get rid of some of that karma. You can see when you, really sit and think about these different results, and you can see how the results resemble the cause for both the experiential and the environmental results. You can see how they resemble the action that was done. Okay, lying. Others slander and deceive us don't believe or trust us, accuse us of lying when we are telling the truth. Yeah, we've met people, maybe we're one of them, that happens. Environment, you're born in a place with disharmony in the workplace, deceitful people, corruption in society, and you feel afraid. Okay, so maybe the deceitful people, corruption in society is part of our karmic result to be born, in this country with what is happening right now. Divisive, and with in terms of the, the pandemic, the result of killing, the medicine is not potent, or you don't even have medicine. Okay, divisive speech. Experiential result, lack of friends. People don't like to be with us. We are separated from spiritual masters and Dharma friends and have a bad reputation. And we meet some people who for no reason, remember in school when you're little, there's some kids that everybody ridicules and nobody likes, and there's no good reason behind it at all. Yeah, and sometimes there's adults like that too, okay? Or separated from spiritual masters and Dharma friends. We meet many people who, they live in far-flung areas, difficult to get to a Dharma center. Okay, this is a result of divisive speech. Environmental result, rocky, uneven land with cliffs. A place where travel is difficult and dangerous. So, an external manifestation of divisive speech. Harsh words. We are insulted, blamed, and criticized, even when we speak with a good intention, and others misunderstand us. Okay. Maybe we should laminate that one. Because how touchy we are when we're insulted or blamed or criticized, even when we think we haven't done anything wrong. Yeah, we never consider that we did something wrong. It's always the other person, saying something that's totally out of hand. Others misunderstand us. They blame us. They don't appreciate us. Well, why? Okay, we've spoken harsh words. Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, and then being born in a barren, dry place that is inhabited by uncooperative people and has thorns, sharp stones, scorpions, and dangerous animals. Australia, yeah. Idle talk. People do not listen to our words or value what we say, and others laugh at us. Oh, maybe we should print that one out as well, too. Okay, environmental. Drab place with an unbalanced climate where fruit does not ripen at the proper time, wells go dry, flowers and trees don't blossom. That's idle talk. Okay, now the mental ones, covetousness. So we have intense desires and cravings. Yeah. Can't complete projects or fulfill our wishes and hopes, and our ventures fail. Interesting, isn't it? You crave and want, and the result is, well, more of the above. You have intense desires and cravings, but you can't actualize what you want. Yeah, we can't fulfill our wishes, complete projects, our ventures fail. Okay. Environmental, small crops, our property, belongings, and the environment constantly deteriorate. And were in an isolated and poor place. Malice, experiential result, we feel great hatred, fear, suspicion, guilt, paranoia, and fright for no obvious reason. Yeah? So some people have, emotionally, they're like that. And, and so it's a result of malice. And you can see, when you have malice for somebody, then of course you're going to have hatred and suspicion and fear and paranoia of people treating you exactly as you've drawn up your plans for how you treat them. I think that's going to happen even in this life. Okay, environmental result of malice, born in or live in a place with epidemics, disputes, dangerous animals, and poisonous snakes, wars and calamities, and unpleasant food. You can see how that corresponds to malice. Okay, then wrong views. Experiential result, we are very ignorant and dull mentally, have difficulty understanding the Dharma, and it takes a long time to gain realizations. And the environmental result is few crops, lack of a home and a protector. Natural resources are exhausted, springs go dry, polluted environment, and chaotic society. Okay, so that can help explain a lot of what we're going through right now, can't it? Okay, so we'll stop here.
Is karmic debt the kind of result that we experience?
Oh, now some people use the term karmic debt. What does that mean? That you harm somebody, so you owe them something now? What does karmic debt mean exactly?
Don't know what it means, but I see it in the books. And there's also a term that they use, lichak. Lichak.
Lechak. Is that Chinese?
No, it's Tibetan. And it was in the Gomo Tuku's commentary on the 7-point mind training, and it talked about karmic debt.
Okay. Yeah, Jeff. I need a better definition or explanation of what karmic debt means.
Well, I'm not going to help in that regard, but a lot of repentance ceremonies you dedicate for your karmic debtors. There's a term like that. It used to scare the hay out of me. I'm like, who are these karmic debtors waiting out there to claim a debt from me, and I have to repent now?
Okay. So, what I think it sounds like what it involves around is this notion that I just kind of debunked, that, so I did something to somebody, or somebody did something to me now, and so now I have to do something to them, or they did something to me, now I have to do something. Or like I harmed somebody. Yeah, maybe it means something like that, like in a past life I harmed somebody, and so now there's some karmic entanglement between us, so they're going to harm me back unless I do something nice to them. So it could, that's really thinking of karma in a rather tit-for-tat way. When we think of spirits, the little I know about spirits, it's like some spirits who have malevolent intentions. That could explain why they have that. Maybe in a previous life somebody harmed them, and so in this lifetime they, want to harm them back, or in this lifetime they're waiting for the person who harmed them in a previous life to do something nice to them, make an offering. Do you have any ideas about karmic debts?
Someone did tell me that once at a teaching, Lama Zopa Rinpoche was at one of those retreats, that somebody asked this question, if someone harms you, have you harmed that person in a past life? And he said, yes. So that's why I'm curious where you got this information from. Have you heard it elsewhere that that's not the case?
Because if you say that, then there's no way for us to possibly get out of samsara. If every time somebody harms us, we now have to harm them back.
No, that's not the meaning.
No?
That's not the meaning. No.
What is it? No,
Well,
I'm not
If I harmed somebody in a previous life, okay, I created harm to that person. So then that person may, I don't know if it's necessarily the
this
case,
life.
might come and harm me back. But that doesn't mean I have to harm them in return.
No, but-
it just means that there is that karmic connection.
Okay, but
Between
they
me and that
harm you,
person.
but then as soon as they harm you, they've harmed you. It's the same thing. Now you want to harm them back.
Yeah, but if we learn the Dharma, then we say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stop this now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just wondered if you had heard anyone say that it isn't necessarily the same.
I can't remember exactly who or what or when, but otherwise, really, that just leaves us really very trapped. If every time somebody harms us, we then have to harm them. You're an innocent.
No, that's not the meaning. Like, for example, if there's a lot of talk about people getting spirit harm from spirits.
Yeah.
And my understanding is, at
Well,
least for some people, the explanation of that is I harmed them
I
in the
harmed them.
past.
But see, that's the thing. You harm them, so now they're obligated to harm you. So if I harm somebody, then they're obligated to harm me back. And every time somebody harms me, then I have to harm them back.
No, because once we know about karma, we can make that decision.
Okay.
I am not going to respond
To do
in
that.
that
Well,
way.
then how can you have a karmic debt? Can't that other person then say, no, I'm not going to retaliate?
Well, then that finishes the debt.
So then it's not really a karmic debt, is it? The term karmic debt sounds like it's something, like it's, you better pay up or else.
I always thought of it as a cultural thing. I don't know, like to help you release this feeling of like, well, I've paid the debt back. All right, I owed that person something. It is over now. I'm gonna dedicate for them and move on with my life.
Right. I see it as much more a cultural thing too.
Or I've heard people use it to scold people, so I'm not keen on, like your parent gets angry. What did I owe you in a past life? Like, oh, great.
Oh.
Not that I've been scolded that way, but you hear it. Yeah, that's the karmic version.
Yeah.
We talk about incurring a karmic debt as monastics when we're eating food that's been offered with faith if we're not Arya beings, right? Don't we talk about that in that term?
Do they call that a karmic debt?
Maybe
I just call that creating negative karma. You mean you're saying it's a debt to that if you eat meat, or no? If somebody
we
offers
are receiving the
offering,
of sponsors
and if we
with
don't,
faith, and because we're not Arya beings yet, it's like we are
Yeah.
incurring a debt that we need to repay to these donors, and so it inspires us
Oh.
to practice well.
okay, they say it's like a debt, but I've never heard it said it is a karmic debt. Yeah, but I think it's more the idea of, well, somebody's supporting us, we have to do our part of the bargain. We can't just sit there and with an open palm without keeping our precepts and studying and so on. Yeah. I don't know, it's a term that I'm not real familiar with. I don't have a clear idea in my own mind what it means. And I haven't seen it specifically in a Dharma book. You can read about it more when they talk about, like probably in the Ksitigarbha Sutra, they'll talk about it or things like that. But I've often wondered if that's a cultural thing or if it's a translation issue. So basically my answer is, I don't know, ask somebody else. Okay? It's not in the Princeton Dictionary? Okay. Maybe just Google it and see if you can come up with a reliable Buddhist source.
Oh, sorry, I have to stay with that because some years ago I read something like that in a book that gave me actually an explanation what's meant with that. May I read this paragraph? It's by it's a commentary by Shakya Trasin on a text on by Shakya Trasin. Yeah.
Okay.
And okay, he's saying they are limitless beings, and each sentient being is actually none other than our dear father, mother, sister, and son, and so on. Each has given us much love, much care, protection. Each has benefited us in many ways. However, due to our change in birth, we do not realize this, and we do not recognize each other. We view some people as enemies, some as friends, some as indifferently, when in reality every single sentient being is our very dear mother. This includes our most hated enemies, who today might be very harmful to us and seem very evil to us. They appear to us in the form of enemies, asking for the debts that we owe them because we did not pay back their kindness. Because every sentient being is our own dear mother, we must think of their well-being, their suffering, their benefit, and their happiness. You know,
Okay,
in that
so
regard.
then it's like more like somebody's been kind to us, so we owe them something.
No, has been we have been unkind to somebody, and it's like, you know, when I have been unkind to somebody, actually my need was connection, but I was not able to connect. I'm unkind to somebody, but the other person is still not, it's not happy with me, with my behavior. So actually they may nag me in anger. But because they don't know how to connect with me in kindness, or they're afraid that I will further spoil.
So what is a karmic,
anger.
what's the karmic debt?
The karmic debt is a lack of kindness, because I have not repaired the kindness of mother sentient being.
Okay, but it's not a karmic debt to this particular person.
It's not what he's saying, yeah.
Okay, so it's basically the law of karma. You do something harmful, you experience suffering. The suffering doesn't have to come from the exact person that you did the action towards. Yeah, okay. That I think is correct, but it's this whole thing when yeah. Anyway, ask somebody who knows more than I do, because I cannot answer this. It is one of the subjects that involves karma, which, as we know, only the Buddha understands. So please go ask a Buddha. And in the meantime, be nice to other people. And then you won't have to worry about karmic debts.